For the purposes of this conversation, we're not including J.J. McCarthy, who hasn't played all year long, or Michael Penix, who has just barely played. But as you'll recall, this is the order in which they were drafted last spring. Yep. Caleb Williams went number 1, Jayden Daniels went 2, Drake May went 3, and Bo Nix, for the purposes of this exercise, went 4, 12 overall, to the Denver Broncos. If we were redrafting them now, in what order, Dan, would you take them?
All right, so before the list comes up, I really wrestled between 1 and 2 in the redraft and then 3 and 4 in the redraft. If I was redrafting, I would put Jayden Daniels at number 1. Jayden Daniels going into the draft, if you remember, Greeny, I would have taken Jayden Daniels at number 1. I think we've seen the athleticism on the field that's been absolutely spectacular. We've seen the deep ball to Terry McLaurin that's been unbelievable. The ball placement, a lot of things that we loved in college, they've absolutely transitioned over to the NFL. I'm fascinated to see how this second half pans out and can they reset. I would take Drake May at number 2. I am fascinated with how well he has played. If you're in New England, you got to be freaking giddy about this kid. He is doing more with less. The thing that has been, I guess, most surprising is how little he misses. The accuracy is significantly better than I expected. He's made plays with his legs. I think he's got like 2 missed throws in the last 2 weeks. The only thing I care about in New England right now is who's going to be that big-time receiver addition. Okay? This is where I wrestled at 3 and 4 because Drake May almost went number 1 for me. Caleb Williams would still be at number 3. I loved last week. The ball came out of his hands quickly. He had that 2-week stretch against the Jacksonville Jaguars and Carolina Panthers where he was spectacular. We saw playmaking with his legs. I love the addition of Thomas Brown as the offensive coordinator, getting the ball out of his hands. And then I want to see if they can do it 2 weeks in a row. I would still have Bo Nix at 4, but again, I wrestled and thought about putting him at 3 and Caleb at 4. All he's doing is ascending. He's controlling their offense. He's doing a ton at the line of scrimmage. He's throwing the ball downfield only when it's there or necessary, and he's hitting it. I think he's been spectacular in the red zone when it comes to his decision-making. And Sean Payton is doing a phenomenal job with Davis Webb as far as crafting their offense. So I wrestled. Drake May, I really thought maybe I'll take Drake at 1 and Jayden at 2. But because of the full body of work, I kept Jayden at 1. And then I really thought Drake May or Bo Nix, the way that he's playing, I entertained hard putting him at 3.
So first off, shout out our buddy Tim Hasselbeck, who was on this show and others campaigning for Drake May at a time when there were a lot of people who were questioning him. Dan, the question I have for you about this is, how much of this is about the circumstances? Bo Nix was drafted onto a team with Sean Payton, who has a very specific plan for him. He has looked brilliant. That's not a surprise. Caleb Williams has been drafted into a situation that, while we all thought it was the best we had ever seen, we've clearly seen that it has some holes in the problem, holes in the coaching. They've already fired the offensive coordinator. How much of this is about the circumstances the players are in?
Yeah, it's always a significant part of the process. The place you go and who you go with, I think is equally as important, if not more, than the actual talent. These guys in the first round that get drafted, they're all super talented. The concern with Caleb is 50, the number 50. Okay, he has 50 negative plays. That was the issue in college. So that's a huge number. Negative plays are sacks, interceptions, and fumbles combined. He's got 50 already. He's taken 41 sacks. So a lot of the things that were concerning about Caleb in college football are a concern about Caleb in the NFL. The offensive line, in my opinion, has not performed as bad as those numbers represent. Again, I liked last week, but it's got to improve multiple weeks in a row.
All right, that sound you hear is the entire city of Chicago losing its collective mind over Caleb not only being not being number 2, but being number 3. Do you agree?
Yeah, to your point, I almost would say 4 right now with how those guys have played. You wrestled with it.
But how they've played is one thing, but if you were redrafting them, that's the conversation we're having. It's not about how they've played. Clearly, he would be a distant four.
Do you believe more in Bo Nix or more in Caleb Williams from what you've seen so far?
Right, that's the question.
To that point, I look at that, and if we went into it and we said Caleb Williams is the most talented quarterback in the draft, then of course you still would want him to be first. I look at it, all the things you talked about that's gone on in Chicago, how can you succeed in that? Like, that's the issue where for Caleb Williams, we're only 12 weeks into the season. They've already fired the offensive coordinator for a rookie for the first overall pick when you've known you were going to draft him at that spot. So I still have a lot of faith in Caleb Williams that he can turn this around and continue that projection in his career.
So I'm wondering, if the Bears had gone Jayden Daniels at 1, in a hypothetical world.
That's the question.
would he have uplifted that franchise, or would he be going through what Caleb is?
It's a great question, Schefter. It's almost impossible to answer because Jayden has kind of rocket shipped because of what Cliff has done with them. Cliff Kingsbury, their offensive coordinator. He's got Terry McLaurin. That connection's been spectacular. I don't think Jayden would have had the season he's had under Shane Waldron in Chicago now.
If only Cliff Kingsbury and Caleb Williams had known each other really well before the season, like, I don't know, he had been his coach in college or something like that, and the Bears chose to hire Shane Waldron instead of him when they were making these decisions in the first place, which is just further proof of the overwhelming organizational incompetence that has destroyed more careers in Chicago than anything else and feels like it's in danger of doing the same to Caleb. Right now, if you were drafting them, Harry, would you agree with this order?
Yeah, I like that order, and I will tell you this about Drake May. Drake May has the most upside of everyone on that list right there because of the prototypical body, the strength. He has the ability to run the football, pass the football. So I really like him, and as he progresses, he might be the best quarterback of this class when it's all said and done.
The biggest conversation right now is Drake May and Bo Nix. Drake May, I'm telling, it has been sensational. And I was the person who was like, don't play him his first year. Don't play him in meaningful snaps because I don't want to ruin him. He's overcoming a bad offensive line. If you ask most people, give me their two receivers, they'd be like, who? They don't have Pop Douglas, you know? And so the only thing that you think about with New England is, okay, who's going to be the first-round draft pick at wide receiver? Are they going to go get T. Higgins? He's been sensational.
Or a tackle, right? They could take a left
go get a wide
tackle.
receiver.
Yeah.
He's been sensational. And then I would say the second biggest talking point is Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Denver's going to compete for the 7th spot in the playoffs. What's the cap hit, the dead cap hit off the Russell Wilson trade? They're paying Russell Wilson like $30 or $40 million.
He's the highest paid player on their team.
They have no business being in the conversation for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they are in part because how well Bo Nix is playing.
Basically opted to do because they picked Bo Nix at a time when there were a lot of teams that did not see him as a first-round quarterback. And Sean Payton saw Bo Nix and envisioned a quarterback that he liked as much as anybody in this draft, including Caleb Williams. I'm not sure. I think the only quarterback that they would have taken over him would have been Jayden Daniels going into the draft. So they love him.
But let's not mistake this, okay? We're talking to an audience. Not all of them are sitting watching the All-22 every single week and everything else, right? They come in and out, and we're delighted to have you. The reaction to this is going to be Caleb Williams is third. He fell all the way to third. That's going to surprise people. You guys didn't blink. You didn't, but we're talking about drafting them. We're not talking about how they're playing. We're talking about what we are projecting for their futures. Right now, you are projecting a better future.
No, I still like Caleb Williams at the top of this list.
You do?
With Jayden Daniels.
You still think he will have the best career?
Yeah, I'm not judging him just based off of right now. I still think he has a chance to become a really good football player.
So how do they get him there?
You have to find a way. You just said it. His biggest issue is how long he holds on to the ball, the negative plays. That's what you have to coach out of him and figure out a way not to say, hey, Caleb, you can't do this, but put him in situations, get him outside the pocket, in situations where now we can use that playmaking ability. So you say to Caleb, hey, there's going to be 10 times a game where you're going to be outside the pocket. We want you to create. We want you to be that point guard on the basketball court. But other than that, Dan's shaking his head, I don't care. Other than that, we need you to play quarterback and do it the right way.
So here's the thing, like, Caleb Williams did a great job this past weekend, I thought. And Thomas Brown, as offensive coordinator, did a great job of making sure he didn't sit there and hold the football. And I got a tape to show it. When you look at this first play that we're going to show y'all, watch Caleb Williams and how he just has to get the football out of his hands. You're going to bring DJ Moore down in motion. And as he gets to the bottom of the screen, Caleb Williams is going to take the ball, throw it to him right now. Don't give him time to sit here and think. DJ Moore is going to go downfield. He's going to have a positive play, pick up a first down.
Yep.
Now, this second one, I believe it's going to be 3rd and 2. You got a 3rd and 2 situation. I don't want him sitting back there holding the football a long ways. You're going to have Roma Duze at the top. He's going to run a shallow route versus man coverage. Okay, Caleb Williams, you get the football, throw it to him quick, let him get upfield, pick up the first down. And then the last one that I'm going to show, it's a simple stick route and a diagonal or slash flat route by the tight end. You're going to force Caleb Williams to get this football out of his hands quickly. Quick reads. Now he's wide open. You don't have a defender close by. Cole Kmet's going to pick up a positive first down yardage. So those are the type of things right now that you have to force the issue-wise when it comes to Caleb Williams, so he doesn't sit back there and hold the football.
Living in the drop-back game for the entire time for the first 10 weeks of his career wasn't a good idea?
Yeah.
What they did was the football equivalent of criminal, the way they coach that kid the first 10 weeks. And now, and look, hopefully everything will turn out just fine. He still has all the talent in the world.
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
Why are you laughing?
I just disagree with J-Mac. The hardest part of this list is not having Drake May at 1.